Jesus didn't have a problem with people that's in the streets. He had a problem with religious people.
How can I help anybody when I was not even able to help my own son?
I would never do that. And I became that in a matter of minutes when they took my pain pills away.
And I said, I'm not where I want to be, but thank God I'm not what I used to be.
This is Faith in Your Recovery. I am Randy Davis. Welcome to the battle. Are you tired of the fight? Fed up with the struggle? Done lying to yourself about, well, maybe the next time. Hold on. We don't believe you've come this far to only come this far. Whether you stumbled on our podcast or connected intentionally, we think you may just be where the next right step of your recovery is about to happen. Faith in your recovery may be just what you need. We have become a true source of help and hope for those battling substance use disorder/addiction, the strugglers who were once forgotten, cast out, discarded. They're now proving to each other and to everyone else that recovery is possible. Where negativity, desperation, and hopelessness once lived, there's now a path to a healthy and successful future. On this episode, you'll hear from a struggler that rose from the ashes, the lies, the guilt, that sense of worthlessness to a point in their recovery where they're touching, changing, and saving lives. We're glad you're with us. We look forward to sharing with you today. Now, let me welcome today's recovery rock star, Tara Allred. Welcome, Tara.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We look forward to what you've got to share. We appreciate your time, your willingness to open yourself up like this, to become vulnerable. But I think you'd probably agree that's a part of your healing and your recovery.
Definitely, yes. And it's a pleasure. Thank you.
Well, we look forward to it with all of our heart, and thank you. And folks, make sure after hearing this today that you subscribe, like, and share what we've got to offer. Tell your friends. We'll have more about that later. Tara, let's go back early in your childhood.
Okay.
Tell us what your growing up years were like, up to that 7 or 8 year old range.
Okay.
What was home like?
I actually had a wonderful childhood, loving parents, Christian home, older brother, little sister, very tight family with uncles, aunts, cousins, grandparents. I remember going to church every every Sunday. I grew up in a small community down in southern Indiana up until about 2nd or 3rd grade, and then we moved to Muncie.
What was that community?
It was actually called East Enterprise, or Vive, Indiana.
Oh, Vive, I get East Enterprise, I don't. Vive, I do.
Yep. Yeah, very small southern gospel town.
Right on the river,
Right on the river, yeah. So, I just, like I said, I remember as a young child being a believer. I remember asking my dad one Sunday afternoon after church if he would help me bring Jesus into my heart. So I was just a very, middle-class family, but full of love. And we leaned on each other. And I don't have anything but nice, positive memories as a little girl. So
I like what you had to say. We were close-knit.
Yeah.
We don't get that all the time anymore, do we?
No, times have changed, yeah.
That's sad for everybody involved. I have a very pleasant memory of Vive. This was years and years ago. We were down that way, and we were able to take the ferry across the river from there.
Yeah.
And they let our oldest son, our only son at that time, up in the front to where he was thinking he was driving the boat. I still treasure that moment.
So, beautiful community, beautiful town. So
lovely area there. So take us on then into your school years.
Okay.
As a student.
Yeah. Like I said, in about 2nd or 3rd grade, we moved to Muncie, Indiana, and my dad was a teacher. He also was in school at the time to further his education. My mom worked for Ball State. I, again, thrived in school, was a good student, have nothing but great memories, great childhood. I remember probably in middle school, my dad started having some health issues going on, and he had a lot of heart trouble. I mean, by my junior year, he had a quadruple bypass surgery, and I remember going in and out of the hospital with him, and that did start to affect my time going to church because my dad was sick all the time. But I, in high school had lots of friends. I wasn't the party girl at all. My nickname was Mom. My friends did like to go out and have fun, but I was the one that kind of made sure they got home okay, or, led them to what's called Young Life. I don't know if you've heard of Young Life.
I have, but tell the folks listening so
Young Life,
understand.
Young Life is a non-denominational Christian outreach for middle school and high school kids. I joined when I was a freshman in high school, and I think there was maybe, 8 or 9 of us. And it was basically just a group of kids that we would do games and skits and sing songs and have, good times. And then there would be like a little Christian lesson. I loved it so much, and I loved that I could, be a part of that because it was part of school and after school. And if I didn't go to church, I at least had that. So I remember bringing my friends all into it. And again, just my sophomore, junior year, we went to camp for that, and all of my friends went. I think by the time I graduated, our club once was 8 or 9, had over 200 people.
Wow.
Yeah, so I went to Muncie Central High School.
Okay,
so,
Bearcat.
Yeah, so again, I was into sports.
What sports?
I was a softball player, and I also dove for the swim team. So I was in band. Like I said, just a good kid, good grades,
doing the right
morals,
things.
values. Yeah, I had them. I tried, I remember praying with my friends. I remember my friends making wrong choices, and I would literally get off the phone and cry because I was sad for them. And
I want to point something out with that, if I can interrupt you for a second. Correct me if I'm wrong. You are a middle child.
Yes, I am.
Yes. Boy, you filled that role perfect.
Wow,
I am myself, so I can relate to that middle child syndrome.
Yep.
That rescuer, that overseer, that younger one looking out for the older one and taking care of the youngest. Been there, done that, okay.
Definitely,
That's not all bad.
Yeah, no. I do remember stints of my brother. He was, a little bit older than me, dabbling in, some drugs and alcohol and some choices that he made that, I remember thinking as a child, watching him go through it, I was like, man, that won't be me. I don't want that to be me. I worked at, as 14 years old, I was already had a job on weekends and actually worked with him at One Accord restaurant. So I worked as a server, and
the sopapillas there were incredible.
They were amazing,
with some honey.
Yeah. So, again, I was so close to him, but I do remember some of the choices that he went, or some of the trouble that he would get into, and see my family kind of, deal with that. And that wasn't going to be me, that wasn't going to be me. So, leading up, like I said, Dad's going through a lot of health trouble, but I was determined to still, utilize my morals and values and my faith. I would say that definitely had a traumatic impact on my life, with just going on as, up until recently too, with just stints in the hospital with loved ones and losing. And, but again, he, pulled through it and is still here today. And, so, let's go past high school, because again, great time, great years. I graduated in 1995 and went to Ball State. Most of my friends were younger than me. They were in the grade behind me. So I kind of went off really by myself. So even though I only lived a couple blocks down the road, it's an independent shock to a girl, again, who, all of a sudden, could go where she wanted, do what she wanted. And, I lived in the dorms. I joined a sorority, and that will be, my first taste of that freedom was joining sorority. And, I remember my first party I went to at Ball State with the sorority, and I remember drinking alcohol for the very first time. And I loved it.
Was that to fit in?
It was. It was just to try.
Believe?
Yeah, it was just to try. Everybody was doing it. You know, I'm on my own.
permission within that group.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh
An
yeah.
Expectation.
Yes.
And
Yes. Yeah.
Peer
But
pressure.
yeah, it was. It was. But you know, like you said, everybody was doing it, and I was like, well, why not me too? Let me try it. You know, I'm a good kid. I've got my head on straight. It'll be okay.
I can handle it.
Yeah, I can handle it. And you know, like I said, I just remember, you know, the warmth that came over, the freedom of that, like in my head, like no worries, no, you know, not just it was a rush, and I'd never felt anything like that before in my life. So, you know, party here, party there, led to party Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, then get up and do it all over again. And it got really out of control. I was partying way too much. I almost actually flunked out of college my first semester because that's all I did was party.
What was your educational direction at that time?
At the time, I was actually in nursing. And I remember changing my major quickly to criminal justice because I didn't like the trajectory of all the classes I had to take for nursing. So then I'm dabbling in criminal justice because I loved politics, loved to argue. And then, like I said, I just remember too, just being so lost. Like, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what I want to be. The pressure of this, the pressure of that. And like I said, going out with my friends, I didn't have to worry about any of that. That was the least of my concerns. And, you know, again, I guess too, just making all new friends and leaving the ones I had behind. I was reinventing myself and I didn't know who that person was. I think losing the friends I had because they still were in high school, I had to refine myself, find purpose again, and I didn't know how to do it. So I was also young. I was 17 my freshman year of college, so very, very immature still, you know. And
easily swayed.
Very easily
it's a
swayed.
Big world.
Yeah, well, and I found that when I was partying, I got a lot of attention. You know, I was a small girl and could drink a lot of the older, you know, bigger guys under the table. And I loved that. I loved the attention for getting that. I had high tolerance until I had no tolerance. So, you know, eventually though, that wasn't fun anymore for me because I went back to my faith. Like, you know, God never left me during those times. I may have walked and strayed away from him, but he was still there picking up the pieces. So, you know, it was a big smack to the face when here I was, you know, a good student and I almost flunked out of school. And so went back to my ways again. I became actually a young life leader. They pulled me out of my depths of alcohol and the partying and all that. And so I really focused in on that and, lost my grandma. I guess I was a sophomore in college, lost my grandma, and that was a big hit. She was a very matriarch of the family, very spiritual woman who kind of held all of us together spiritually. Mm-hmm, very much so. So I remember my parents going through something major while I was leading a camp one summer, and it rocked our world. My dad, you know, was kind of like a midlife crisis for him, but back then we didn't have cell phones. So here I am in camp, you know, 4 states away. I was in Wisconsin, and I get a call from my mom, and she's bawling, and she's like, "Your dad left me," and so I'm helpless, hopeless. I couldn't save her, right? I'm a saver. I'm very codependent, so very codependent. I didn't know that then, but I know that now, and so
was that totally out of the
It
blue,
was. Yeah, they had a
situation?
great marriage. Of course, they argued. My dad was in Vietnam, so he had a lot of PTSD, and there was some anger stuff that he had, but he went to counseling, and he was working on it, you know, and again, I was daddy's little girl, and I tell you, when he left and took off, he became a human to me, you know, and I fell off that pedestal I had. So that was a shock to my system. And I came back, and I immediately said I couldn't stay here. I didn't want to be in the middle of it. And they were going to work on things, which was great. So I took off to Tennessee. And I wanted, again, Young Life was a connection for me. So I decided to transfer to Middle Tennessee State University. Became a Young Life leader down there. And actually, we started a Young Life club down there. It was brand new. So I got to help start that. And went down there by myself, reinventing myself again, finding new friendships. But I was very, very spiritually connected. And again, well on my way, doing big things. And I met my first husband down there. And I was 22 at the time, and was with him and fell in love. And we ended up having a baby and got married. And I remember his father passed away at very, very quickly. I was still pregnant with Tyler at the time, and something happened within my first husband, and he kind of snapped. And I found myself.
Was that at the time of his dad's death?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
It was at the time of his dad's death.
Most likely related.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
But I actually learned a lot through that I didn't know was there before. But he became very violent. So I went through a very horrible marriage of domestic abuse. But here I am, I'm married. And in my faith, we don't divorce. We try to work things out. So I stuck it out, I stuck through it little by little with every abuse there was.
And this more physical than anything
It was a little
else?
bit of everything, actually. It started off mentally and emotional. I could go back and see some of the red flags there, but then after he passed away, his dad passed away, it became more physical.
Okay.
It's
usually a package.
Like I said, so then, I coped. How did I cope? I coped with alcohol. Turned back to alcohol. He and I drank together a lot and had fun, and during the times, but then there was times where we didn't have fun with it, and it got really ugly. But again, had a baby, was trying to make things work.
How old is the baby at this point?
Baby's 6 months old.
Okay.
6 months old, and I remember having a major blowout with the father of Tyler, and I ran back home. So I came back home, but that wasn't nothing new in the marriage. I was married to him for 12 years. So again, I saw the good. I saw what I felt he could be. I was, had 2 babies with him, actually. So Tyler was 3 when I had Rachel. And it wasn't all bad, but when it was bad, it was really bad. And my self-esteem and my self-worth, I lost her.
They had to plummet.
Yeah, very much so. So again, it was just a lot of abuse, but I ran home a few times and then I'd come back. And I had a good support system just from friends I've made down in Columbia, Tennessee. And, I couldn't walk away from the marriage. So the alcohol became my crutch. It was, every night I'd have a couple drinks to go to sleep. And then I would party on the weekends just so I could numb the pain, or maybe I had to physically numb the pain. So alcohol did it. I didn't feel anything when I was drunk. Right. So, it got completely out of control. And it was probably a good 2-3 years of really bad blackouts and hard times, and
a couple 3 years of heavy usage, alcohol, and the physical dynamics.
Yes. So I actually, during that whole time, I finished my degree. I was a special ed teacher and worked.
How did you manage that?
By the grace of God, honestly. Yeah, I did. I had two beautiful children, and, I was the only thing they had. And, I knew I had to continue to do what I was supposed to do. And
Was that the goal that got you through that darkness? Now, I know God was in there.
yeah, he was.
But I'm not hearing you say yet, and I know you're going to, that he was the one that pulled you out. But in order for you to stay above water, to keep your head above water, focusing on that degree gave you something positive.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and because a lot of the emotional and mental abuse, I remember him saying, you're nothing without me. If you ever leave me, who's going to want you with two kids? I mean, it was, like I said, it was very, very, very
Sure.
rough. And I believed those lies, so I just, again, but it was something that I did on my own, that I accomplished myself. So, I did it, I made it work. I was working full time while I was doing it. So I'm supporting the family, working full time, and had two children. And, I look back, and it's probably during the time I didn't know how I did it, but I did it.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, like I said, God had a purpose, and, it wasn't, I still dabbled in church too, even though I was drinking. There's sometimes I drank before church just to get through. It got so bad that I was, drinking to cover up the shakes. And then sometimes, once that drop of alcohol hit, I was off to the races for a few days, binging in and out, coming to, trying to be manageable with it because I had two kids. But there was times where I definitely wasn't, and not saying that I wasn't the perfect wife or the perfect mom, because, again, I honestly think the grace of God, raised my kids. I know Matt, the father, was there and did what he could, but a lot of that was subject to some of the abuse that I was going through every single day. So anyways, finally working, but still, trying not to quit. I remember the crazy and insanity thinking of, I'd have a binge weekend. That's usually what would happen, is I wouldn't drink so much during the week, but on the weekends I would just go crazy with it. And, I would drink beer on Sundays just to sober up, so, and like I said, just the insanity of it. But it got to where I just couldn't control it anymore. And I had to drink in the mornings before school, just to function, just to get through the work day. And eventually that got so bad to where I'd have to do it on my lunch break just to get through the shakes. I would go off campus, and, have lunch. But then as soon as, after school I was off to the races again. And that happened for a couple months. I remember, the administration knew I was, they definitely knew I was, struggling. They knew about the abuse, and they tried, I remember one principal telling me, hey, I'll go to a meeting with you. Let's go to a meeting. And so I eventually checked myself into a detox and got detoxed. And that lasted for about a good month or two. But then I continued again. Mind you, the abuse is still going on. I've kicked him out, or he's come back. And usually I kicked him out, and he'd some way, somehow, he would beg me to come back, or, say all the sweet things that, know.
You've already described yourself as codependent.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yep.
he had a
Yep.
lead up on
Oh,
you
yeah.
in that respect. And the manipulation
Definitely.
of those who struggle with addiction is beyond
Definitely.
the norm.
Definitely. So, I ended up, like I said, relapsing after that, and relapse is not unfamiliar in my story, but I remember I was a assistant softball coach, and after school, when I was coaching, I didn't drink until I got home, but something happened after school to where I remember we were outside practicing, and all of a sudden a rush of administration are coming at me, and I asked them, what's going on? They're like, get in the office. And I went in, and I don't remember doing it, probably one of those blackouts, because like I said, I, not,
Yes, they were
during
regular.
lunch. They were regular, frequent. But I had emptied bottles from my car into one of the trash cans. So that put me on a path of, oh no, I may lose my license, right? So I was suspended for time until there was a hearing. And I remember, again, just drinking for the next week or so, just to not feel anything and not deal with anything. And so I get on Facebook at the time, and I see where my family is asking for lots of prayer, and that really bothered me. So I remember calling my mom and saying, "What's going on? Why am I finding out something's bad happening on Facebook?" And she was like, "'Cause it's about you. We're on our way to come get you." And I was like, "Okay." And they're like, "We're going to put you into a facility, a treatment center." And so they came down, and I just cried. I wanted it. I needed it. But I didn't know how to ask for it. So the fact that they intervened for me was amazing. So they took my 2 kids back home with them to Indiana, and I went into Cumberland Heights in Nashville, Tennessee. It was a 28-day facility. And again, jumped right in after I, got out of the fog and detox. I remember just, again, having that spiritual awakening. And they were a 12-step facility, so they incorporated a lot of step works, which I am drawn to and care very much about. And but insurance was a big part of things back then.
Yes,
and
yes.
I was still married at the time to the abuser, and I was set free at 14 days, so I didn't get to stay my whole 28. And when I found that out, I was scared to go back. Here I was, 14 days sober, hadn't been sober in a very long time, and I didn't want to lose what I had, but I knew if I went back, I was scared that I was just going to jump right back into it. Because he didn't change anything, right? He didn't have any help. So, so I did. I go back, and I'm praying, and I'm trying. I'm telling him, I'll try to make this work. I'm owning up to my side of the street and all the problems I had, and I'm trying to change who I am. And a week after I got home, Randy, he picked up my drink of choice, which was whiskey. Now, mind you, he didn't drink as much as I did, not as frequent, but it took him a week to him not drinking at all to finally he started. And so here I am, let's see, a month sober, maybe 3 weeks sober, and my husband's now drinking my drink of choice.
Your biggest.
My biggest,
temptation.
yeah. So again, I decided, okay, I've got to beat this. I've got to figure this out. So I immediately started going into meetings where the 12-step programs was. Those were AA meetings. And I, again, was not working at the time because it was summer at this point. And I went to a meeting in the morning. Then I went to a meeting at lunch, and then I went to a meeting in the evening. And I had a routine and a schedule, and I did that, every single day. I had people watching my kids, and a lot of the times I brought my kids to the meetings with me. So, but I was very successful at that. And after about, 3 or 4 months of me, being around him, mind you, he's still drinking, and now he's getting really, really bad. I just said I can't do it anymore. So I filed for divorce, and I moved back to Indiana. So came back to Indiana, and newly divorced, living with my parents, and dive right into my license again. And I didn't lose it, thankfully. By the grace of God, I didn't lose it. So I was able to continue working, and I did that here in Indiana. So a couple years later, I meet my second husband, and my second husband was an evangelist. I was still, again, going to meetings, and he was someone I went to high school with, and very drawn to him, spiritually, and we end up getting married. He had 3 kids of his own, and I had 2, so we were like the Brady Bunch, I say, but I had 3 bonus kids, and life was really, really good. Life was wonderful for at least 6 or 7 years. Just a beautiful marriage. I didn't know I could have love like that. I was, again, leading 5 kids to be warriors for Christ. I was by his side as he was sharing his testimony, and he had one too. And that's another story maybe I can share sometime. But he eventually, 7 years after we were married, he was diagnosed with ALS.
Explain that.
So ALS is it's Lou Gehrig's disease, another name for it, but it is a neurological disease that basically shuts down all of your physical, your limbs, head.
I had a dear friend who went through it, and I walked through a bunch of it with devastating as anything I'd ever watched happen.
Randy, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. Not that I have anything, thankfully, but I wouldn't. To see someone lose that, and basically what happens is your mind is still very much a part of you. You don't lose your mind, but you lose the ability to walk, to feed yourself,
I know
to talk.
It would take him 45 minutes to button up a 5-button shirt to come to church, and he would do that.
Yep.
The things I've watched, unbelievable. Listen, Tara, we've got about another 10, 12 minutes here.
Okay.
Tell us about that loss and what that led to, and then we want to hear your recovery.
Yeah, definitely. So let's go a little bit. Like I said, so he had that. It was very fast and progressive with him. He had it for about 18 months, and we lost him. During that whole time, I was his caregiver. So I'm working, but I'm using all my sick days and all that stuff so I can stay home with him. He ended up getting a tracheotomy because eventually you die basically because you can't breathe. So after he got the tracheotomy, I lost him within 2 to 3 months. It was very quick. But he was my support. So at the end of losing him, I had 9 years of recovery by that time. And I found myself 2 to 3 months later trying it out again. Lost it. So I remember walking in and I picked up where I left off, Randy. It was very, very quick. I was out for about a month and a half. By now, those 2 children that went to AA meetings with me, I couldn't fool them anymore, right? So it was very, very hard. But I immediately found myself back in the rooms, and so grateful I did. I have a great support system, great recovery family. I actually found this group called Rihanna's Hope, and I went just so I could bring my kids because I wanted them off my back while I was drinking, right? And I'm like, well, if I'm going to meetings, then they'll think I'm okay. The insanity of it is kind of just...
the insanity's insane.
It is, you're right, yeah, it's very insane. So anyways, I go, but the people there, they still, they reach out to my kids even to this day. And that was over a year and a half ago, and they, they always ask me how they're doing. It's just a wonderful community, but not only with Brianna's Hope, but my recovery family is through that 12-step program. And I have sober sisters today, and just a blessing of people that actually are a part of my life, and I give back, and that's part of my recovery is the service work. I'm now actually leading the Daleville chapter at Brianna's Hope, and one of the things that I wanted to do was the community when I lost Eric rallied around me and my family and were there, so I wanted to give back, and this was my way of giving back to that community through recovery and just showing people that, relapse was a part of my story, and I, knocked my head a few times, and by the grace of God, I'm back, and life is beautiful. God never left me; I left Him, and I can see that now. And
recovery happens.
It does.
It doesn't have to keep you down.
Yeah. No. No.
Yeah, you're telling us that. Exactly.
And I think the biggest thing that I want that I want listeners to hear is, there's not one thing that I went through in my life, abuse, losing a loved one, death, a childhood where your dad was sick, whatever it may be. There's nothing that someone in the recovery community hasn't gone through that won't be right there with you. It's not an I program, it's a we program. We are there for each other, and I never have to do this alone. Nothing. I just lost an aunt a couple weeks ago who was like a sister to me. My recovery family was there through the whole thing, asking if I'm okay, and I didn't drink through it. That's a win.
Amen to that. The support is what we all need.
Yeah.
We all hunt for a place we can fit. When we fit in a circle of love and support and kindness and generosity and good direction, wow.
Yeah.
We've got a foundation. Obviously, God's that key cornerstone.
Oh, definitely.
We get that.
Definitely.
But the rest of that adds so much to it.
Right.
So, Tara, let me kind of wrap this up. The name of our podcast, Faith in Your Recovery. What do those 4 words mean to you? Obviously, there's no one definition or explanation.
Yeah.
How does that speak to your heart?
Well,
experience?
I know that the big thing is if we have faith, we don't have fear. And fear was the driving force behind my addiction, my alcoholism. I was afraid of the unknown. I was afraid of being by myself. I was afraid of losing my dad, a little bit of everything. And when I have faith, that fear is silenced. And so faith in my recovery is knowing exactly what I just said, that it doesn't matter what happens today. I have people in recovery. They've gone through it, and I'm not alone in any of this. So faith in my recovery is knowing that I can go through anything. God will never leave me. And, there's a team of people beside me that want me to be successful in this too.
What is that one piece of advice that you want to leave folks with?
I think the one piece of advice is that, is just don't drink, just don't use, pick up the phone, go to a meeting, anything that, like I said, that you can do, is to get out, play the tape through. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but that was one thing that, we all think about. We have those thoughts of addiction, or we physically think about it, in our minds is, okay, think about if I drink today, what happens next? So I say, play the tape through. What happens next?
I like that.
So,
yeah. You've got to know the whole story, not just that moment that you're numbing or celebrating or partying.
Yeah.
What's the aftermath?
Right. Definitely.
Wow. Tara, thank you.
Yeah.
Your story's powerful.
Thank you.
As you shared, I'm seeing folks out there shaking their head. Yes, I've been there. I've done that. I've got those same scars. And by you sharing this, they have somebody they can relate to now. Folks, Faith in Your Recovery, we believe recovery is like a rainbow. Nobody can see a rainbow without sharing it with someone else. Rainbows aren't secrets. We also believe you can't experience recovery without telling others. Recovery, it shouldn't be a secret either. So hang in there, hold on, keep trusting God. Tara said it over and over. He's going to be there regardless. Your friends, family may turn their back. He's there looking you eyeball to eyeball, ready to hold your hand and lead you forward. So, again, we invite you to subscribe, like, and share. Tune in again. Thank you for listening to our podcast, Faith in Your Recovery. God bless. Amen.